You've done it before. Maybe at a concert, maybe at a protest, maybe just packed into a stadium, screaming for a team you don't even follow that closely. You raised your voice louder than you meant to. You moved when everyone else moved. And for a few minutes, you weren't quite you anymore. Most people call this getting caught up in the moment, but the real answer is far stranger. Your brain doesn't just get caught up. It changes. It swaps out one set of rules for another. And it does this so quickly, so completely, that you rarely notice it happening. This is the story of what a crowd actually does to your mind. Not metaphorically, biologically, psychologically. The moment you stop being one person and start becoming part of something else. Let's start with a question. Why does a person who would never litter, never shout at a stranger, never break a window, sometimes do exactly that the second they're standing in a crowd of people doing the same thing? The French social thinker Gustave Le Bon asked this question over a century ago. In 1895, he published a book called The Crowd, and in it he argued something radical for his time. He said that individuals in a crowd don't just imitate each other, they merge. Le Bon believed that a crowd creates something he called a collective mind, a temporary psychological state where personal responsibility seems to dissolve into the group. You feel less like an individual who will be held accountable. You feel more like a drop of water in a wave. Modern psychology took that idea and gave it a mechanism, a name. Deindividuation. Here's what deindividuation actually means in plain terms. It's the loss of self-awareness and personal identity that happens when you're immersed in a group. Your sense of, I did this, quietly gets replaced by a sense of, we did this. And once that shift happens, the usual brakes on your behavior get weaker. Sound familiar? It should, because you've felt the edges of it even in small, harmless ways. Think about the last time you were in a crowd cheering. Did you check yourself before you shouted something you'd normally never say out loud? Probably not. You didn't feel like a lone voice making a choice. You felt like part of a sound. Psychologist Philip Zimbardo studied this effect directly in the 1960s, and what he found was unsettling. In one experiment, he had female participants deliver what they believed were electric shocks to another person. Some wore their normal clothes and name tags. Others wore hoods that covered their faces, stripping away their individual identity entirely. Zimbardo found that the anonymous, hooded participants delivered shocks for twice as long as the identifiable ones. Nothing about their moral compass had changed overnight. What changed was whether they felt seen. That's the key. Anonymity is one of the strongest triggers of deindividuation, and a crowd is one of the most effective anonymity machines humans have ever built. Not because anyone is actually hidden. You can usually be picked out of a crowd if someone really looks. But psychologically, you don't feel picked out. You feel folded in. And once you feel folded in, something else happens. Your usual internal monologue, the one constantly running risk assessments and social judgments, goes quiet. Researchers call this a drop in private self-awareness. You stop monitoring your own behavior against your personal values, and you start monitoring it against the group's rhythm instead. Why would evolution wire us this way? Wouldn't it be safer to always stay fully yourself? Not necessarily. For most of human history, groups meant survival. A lone human on the savannah was lunch. A coordinated group was a hunting party, a defense line, a tribe capable of outlasting a season of scarcity. Your ancestors who could rapidly sync their behavior with the people around them, who could stop hesitating and start moving as one organism, were often the ones who made it through the night. That syncing instinct didn't disappear just because you traded the savannah for a subway platform. It's still sitting in your nervous system, waiting for the right density of bodies to switch on. Here's where it gets even stranger. This shift isn't just behavioral. It shows up in how your brain processes threat and reward. Studies on crowd psychology have found that being surrounded by an emotionally aligned group amplifies your own emotional state. If the crowd is angry, you get angrier faster than you would alone. If the crowd is joyful, that joy hits you harder too. Psychologist Muzaffar Sharif's early work on group norms showed something similar decades earlier. When people are placed in ambiguous situations, they don't just observe the group's response, they absorb it and start treating it as their own judgment. That's the part that should give you pause. In a crowd, you're not simply influenced by other people's emotions. You start to mistake those emotions for, yo,